The red ships appeared like angry stars against the black of space. Commander Kang Hyun-woo pressed his face closer to the viewing screen on Lunar Station. His heart pounded as he counted 12 enormous warships moving into position near Jupiter. "Those things are huge," whispered Lieutenant Park Minotaur from her seat at the communications desk. Her hands shook as she adjusted the controls. "Sir, they're trying to talk to us." Hyun-woo nodded. "Put it on the main screen." The room filled with the image of an alien face. The creature had sharp features and cold silver eyes that seemed to look right through them. When it spoke, its voice was like ice. "Humans of the small blue world," the alien said slowly, "I am High Admiral Vextar of the Great Zephyrian Empire. You will give us everything you have. Your metals, your water, your people. You have 6 of your months to agree. If you do not, we will kill every living thing on your planet." President Lee So-young appeared on a smaller screen from her office in Geneva. She stepped forward, trying to look brave even though her voice trembled. "Please, we want to talk about this peacefully. Surely we can find a way." "No talking," Vextar cut her off with a wave of his hand. "You are insects to us. Insects do not negotiate with gods. 6 months. Choose wisely." The screen went black. The room became so quiet that Hyun-woo could hear his own breathing. Everyone stared at each other, not knowing what to say. Admiral Kim Jae-ho stood up slowly. He was Earth's top military leader, a man who had spent his whole life preparing for war. But even he looked shaken by what they had just heard. 6 months, he said again, more to himself than anyone else. "They think 6 months is enough time for us to just give up everything." Dr. Yoon Dae-eun pulled up pictures on her computer screen. The images showed the alien ships in detail. Each one was longer than 10 city blocks and bristled with weapons that Earth had never seen before. "Look at this technology," she said, pointing at the screens. "Their shields, their weapons, their engines, everything is hundreds of years more advanced than what we have. If we try to fight them the normal way, they'll destroy us in minutes." The other officers in the room began to murmur among themselves. Some talked about evacuation plans. Others wondered if they should just surrender now and save everyone the trouble. But Admiral Kim was thinking differently. He walked over to the big window that looked out at Earth, hanging like a blue marble in the darkness. For a long moment, he just stared at their home world. "You know what I think," he said finally, turning back to face the group. "I think these aliens made a big mistake." "What do you mean?" asked President Lee from her screen. Kim smiled, but it was not a happy smile. It was the kind of smile a hunter gets when he sees his prey walk into a trap. "They think they know everything about us because they can see our cities and count our ships," he explained. "They think because we've never left our solar system, we must be weak and stupid. They think 6 months is plenty of time for us to get scared and give up." He paused and looked around the room at all the faces watching him. "But they don't know the most important thing about humans," he continued. "We don't give up. Ever. When someone threatens our home, we don't just fight back, we fight back harder than they ever imagined possible." Dr. Yoon looked confused. "But sir, their technology." "Their technology is impressive," Kim agreed. "But technology isn't everything. You know what wins wars? Planning. Patience. And the willingness to do whatever it takes to protect the people you love." He walked back to the center of the room and activated a holographic display. Images of Earth's moon, asteroid belt, and outer planets appeared in the air around them. "They're giving us 6 months because they want us to suffer. They want us to spend that time being afraid, knowing that doom is coming. They want to break our spirits before they even arrive." Lieutenant Park Minotaur raised her hand nervously. "So what do we do instead?" The Admiral's smile grew wider and more dangerous. "We use those 6 months to prepare a surprise they'll never forget," he said. "They think Earth is helpless because they can only see what's on the surface. They have no idea what we can build when we put our minds to it. And they certainly don't know what humans are capable of when someone threatens our families." President Lee leaned forward on her screen. "What exactly are you suggesting, Admiral?" Kim looked directly at her, his eyes blazing with determination. "We're going to let them think they've already won," he said. "We're going to make them believe we're just a bunch of scared primitives who are too frightened to fight back. And while they're congratulating themselves on their easy victory, we're going to build something that will show them exactly what happens when you threaten Earth." He turned off the holographic display and looked around at everyone in the room. 6 months, he said one more time. "They think that's enough time for us to give up. But I think it's exactly enough time for us to get ready to show the galaxy that humans don't surrender. We fight back." The room was quiet for a moment. Then, One by one, the officers began to nod. They could see it now, the plan forming in the admiral's mind. It was dangerous, maybe impossible, but it was better than giving up. "What do you need us to do?" Commander Hyun-woo asked. Admiral Kim smiled his predator's smile one more time. "Everything." 3 months had passed since the aliens gave their terrible ultimatum. Now President Lee So-young stood in front of cameras in her office, but this time she looked very different. Her shoulders were slumped, her eyes were red as if she had been crying, and her voice shook when she spoke. "People of Earth," she began, her words broadcast across every radio and television on the planet, "I have to tell you something that breaks my heart. We cannot fight the Zephyrian Empire. Their ships are too strong, their weapons too powerful. We have no choice but to give up." She paused and took a deep breath, as if the words were too hard to say. "Earth surrenders completely to the Zephyrian Empire. We will do whatever they ask. We just want our people to live." Far away in space, High Admiral Vextar watched this broadcast on his flagship and laughed. His silver eyes gleamed with pleasure as he saw the human leader admit defeat. "See how easily these humans break," he said to his officers. "They talk big, but when real power shows up, they fall to their knees like children." He turned to his second-in-command, a tall alien with blue scales covering his face. "Send our ships down to their cities. Take control of their governments, their military bases, everything. But be gentle with them, we need these humans alive to work in our mines." "Yes, High Admiral," the officer replied. "It will be done." But what Vextar could not see was happening far from Earth, in the cold darkness beyond Pluto. Huge ships that looked like ordinary cargo vessels moved slowly through space, carrying millions of people to secret bases that had been built in total silence over the past 3 months. Captain Park Ji-woo commanded one of these ships. To any alien watching, his vessel looked like a simple transport carrying mining equipment. But hidden inside were 15,000 people, families, children, elderly grandparents, all being taken to safety. "How much longer until we reach the colony?" asked a worried mother holding her baby. 6 more hours, Park replied gently. "Don't worry. Where we're going, the aliens will never find you." Meanwhile, deep in the asteroid belt between Mars and Jupiter, something amazing was happening. Engineer Choi Sung-minute floated in his spacesuit outside what looked like just another big rock floating in space. But this rock had a secret. "Open the doors," he said into his radio. The asteroid split apart like a flower opening, revealing the hidden shipyard inside. Hundreds of workers in spacesuits were putting the finishing touches on a massive warship, one of many being built in secret. Captain Han Bora joined him, also wearing a spacesuit, and looked at their work with pride. "This is incredible," she whispered. "How many ships do we have hidden in these rocks now?" Choi checked his tablet computer. "We just finished number 11,800. By next month, we should have 12,000 ships ready to go." 12,000, Han repeated, hardly believing it. "The aliens think we're just digging for metals out here." "That's exactly what we want them to think," Choi said with a grin. "Every day their sensors see our mining ships going back and forth. They have no idea that we're not mining at all, we're building the biggest secret fleet in human history." Back on Earth, the alien invasion was beginning. Sergeant Lim Tae-hyung crouched behind a building in Seoul, watching the alien dropships land in the middle of the city. The ships were black and ugly, and when they opened, blue-scaled soldiers marched out carrying weapons that glowed with energy. The aliens looked around at the humans watching them and sneered. Their faces showed nothing but contempt, as if they were looking at insects instead of people. "Look at these pathetic creatures," one alien soldier said to another. "They're so afraid they can barely stand up." What the alien didn't know was that Lim understood their language perfectly. Earth scientists had been studying alien communications for months, preparing for this moment. Lim pressed a small button on his radio and whispered very quietly, "All units, remember the plan. Act scared. Act defeated. Let them think they've already won." All around the city, other soldiers hidden in buildings and underground tunnels received the same message. Operation Darkside was beginning. "Yes sir," came the replies. "We'll give them the show they expect." Soon the streets filled with humans who appeared to be surrendering. They came out of their homes with their hands up, looking frightened and beaten. They bowed their heads when the aliens walked by and acted like they were too scared to even look at their new masters. The aliens loved it. They set up their command posts in government buildings and began giving orders to human officials who seemed eager to obey. They established control zones throughout the city and posted guards who looked bored because their job seemed so easy. But everything the humans did was an act. The government officials cooperating with the aliens were really actors trained for months to play their parts perfectly. The scared citizens were actually soldiers and volunteers who had memorized every detail of how to behave like defeated people. Even the children were part of the deception. In schools, they acted like they were afraid of their new alien teachers, but secretly they were passing messages between the adults and reporting everything they saw. Dr. Yoon Daeun, now hiding in an underground bunker beneath Seoul, coordinated the entire performance from her secret command center. "How are our people doing?" asked Admiral Kim, who had joined her in the bunker. "Perfect," she replied, watching dozens of screens showing alien activities throughout the city. "The Zephyrians think they've conquered Earth without firing a shot. They have no idea that every single human they see is following a carefully written script." Kim nodded with satisfaction. "And our fleet?" Choi reports that construction is ahead of schedule. "When the time comes, we'll have 12,000 ships ready to surprise our guests." "Good," Kim said quietly. "Let them enjoy their victory party. It won't last much longer." Exactly 6 months after the first ultimatum, High Admiral Vextar stood on the bridge of his enormous flagship, looking down at Earth through the viewing window. He had brought with him the full might of the Zephyrian Empire, 300 massive warships that could destroy planets. "Today we claim our prize," he said to his officers, his silver eyes gleaming with greed. "The humans have had 6 months to think about their surrender. Now they will see what happens to those who waste our time." Below them, Earth looked like a world in chaos. Smoke rose from burning cities, and thousands of small ships were fleeing the planet in all directions, carrying what looked like panicked humans trying to escape. "Sir," reported his tactical officer, a young alien with green scales covering his neck, "the humans appear to be evacuating their world. Their transport ships are running away like scared animals." Vextar laughed coldly. "Of course they are. They finally understand that resistance is hopeless. Let them run, we'll hunt them down later." He turned to give orders to his fleet commanders. "Move all ships into attack positions around their planet. Prepare to destroy any ship that tries to escape. Today, we show the galaxy what happens to those who defy the Empire." The Zephyrian fleet began moving into formation, their massive ships casting shadows over Earth. Vextar was already imagining the wealth that would flow to him from this new conquest. Earth had so many resources, metals, water, and billions of humans to work as slaves. But then something very strange happened. The fleeing human transport ships suddenly stopped running away. Instead, they began to turn around, facing the alien fleet directly. Vextar frowned at his viewing screen. "What are those insects doing?" he muttered. "Have they lost their minds?" His question was answered a moment later when the human ships began to change. What had looked like simple cargo vessels suddenly revealed hidden panels. Weapons appeared where there had been none before. Gun turrets rose from what had seemed to be storage containers. "What is this?" Vextar demanded, but before anyone could answer, a calm human voice began speaking on every Zephyrian communication channel. "Hello, High Admiral Vextar," said Admiral Kim Jae-ho from his command ship. "Surprise." The word had barely finished when the human ships opened fire. But these were not the primitive weapons the Zephyrians expected. Beams of pure energy lanced out from the disguised human vessels, striking the alien shields with incredible power. The Zephyrian shields, which should have easily stopped any human attack, began to flicker and fail. "Impossible." Vextar screamed at his crew. "Humans don't have weapons like this. Our shields are the strongest in the galaxy." Captain O Minitseo, commanding what the aliens had thought was a simple evacuation ship, smiled as her vessel unleashed another devastating volley. Her ship was actually a powerful warship called Soul's Vengeance, disguised to look helpless and weak. "You made a big mistake last year," she said into her radio, knowing the aliens could hear her. "When you tested our defenses, you left behind pieces of your destroyed ships. Humans are very good at taking things apart and figuring out how they work." The truth hit Vextar like a physical blow. The humans had been studying Zephyrian technology for an entire year, learning its secrets, finding its weaknesses, and building weapons specifically designed to destroy alien ships. But the real shock was still coming. Around the Zephyrian fleet, what had appeared to be ordinary asteroids floating in space began to move. These rocks started opening up like mechanical flowers, revealing that they had never been asteroids at all. They were weapons platforms, hidden and waiting for exactly this moment. Massive guns emerged from the fake asteroids, and they immediately began firing at the alien ships. The Zephyrians found themselves trapped in the middle of a carefully planned ambush, with human weapons attacking from every direction. "Sir," shouted the tactical officer, his voice filled with panic, "We're surrounded. These aren't asteroids, they're some kind of hidden fortresses." Within just a few minutes, half of the mighty Zephyrian fleet was destroyed. Ships that had conquered dozens of worlds were now burning wreckage floating in space. The aliens who had come expecting an easy victory were now fighting for their lives. "Retreat," Vextar ordered desperately. "All ships, retreat immediately." But as his surviving vessels tried to escape, his sensor officer called out with terror in his voice. "Sir, long-range scanners are picking up something impossible. There are massive energy readings coming from the outer solar system. Something big is approaching. No, lots of things." Vextar looked at his screens and felt his blood turn to ice. The space around Pluto was beginning to glow with the light of opening hyperspace windows. One by one, tears appeared in the fabric of space itself, and through these tears came ships. But not just a few ships, thousands of them. The first vessel to emerge was enormous, bigger than anything in the Zephyrian fleet. Its name was painted on the hull in bold letters, Terra's Wrath. Behind it came another ship, then another, then dozens, then hundreds. Admiral Kim Jae-ho stood on the bridge of Terra's Wrath, watching through his view screen as ship after ship of the hidden fleet emerged from hyperspace. He had spent 6 months preparing for this moment, building this massive fleet in secret while pretending to surrender. "All ships report ready for battle," announced his communications officer. Kim nodded and opened a channel to the entire galaxy, not just the Zephyrian fleet. "This is Admiral Kim Jae-ho of the Terran Defense Force," he said, his voice carrying across space to every world in the Empire. "For too long, you have believed Earth to be weak and defenseless. Today, you learn the truth. We don't just refuse your demands, we're bringing the fight to you." Through the hyperspace windows came the final ships of the human fleet. When the last vessel emerged and the windows closed, Vextar sensors counted 12,000 ships, the largest fleet ever assembled by any single world. The High Admiral, who had come to claim an easy victory, now found himself facing an enemy that had used 6 months of pretended surrender to build an unstoppable armada. "Impossible," he whispered, staring at the massive human fleet. "This is impossible." But Admiral Kim's voice came over the radio one more time, calm and deadly serious. "You wanted to see what humans do when threatened," he said. "Now you know." The sight of 12,000 human ships appearing all at once was something no alien had ever seen before. Even the oldest Zephyrian warriors, who had fought in hundreds of battles across the galaxy, found themselves whispering ancient prayers they had learned as children. Admiral Kim Jae-ho stood calmly on the bridge of his massive flagship, Terra's Wrath. Through the huge viewing windows, he could see the enemy ships trying desperately to escape. Some were already damaged from the surprise attack, trailing smoke and fire as they limped away from Earth. "Sir, should we destroy them all?" asked his weapons officer, his finger hovering over the firing controls. Kim shook his head slowly. "Not yet. First, I want to send a message." He walked to the communication console and pressed a button that would send his words not just to the fleeing Zephyrian ships, but to every planet in their empire. "This is Admiral Kim of the Terran Defense Force," he began, his voice calm but filled with steel. "For too long, you have looked at Earth and seen only a small, weak world with no power to defend itself. Today, that changes forever." He paused, letting his words sink in across the galaxy. "We don't just refuse your demands to surrender. We are bringing the war directly to your doorstep. Every world that supported this invasion will now face the consequences." In the bridge of his damaged flagship, High Admiral Vextar listened to these words with growing horror. Around him, his officers frantically tried to get their wounded ship running at full power. "His bluffing," Vextar said, but his voice shook. "No single world can challenge the entire empire. It's impossible." But even as he spoke, he could see on his screens that the human fleet was not just big, it was perfectly organized. Every ship moved with precision, like parts of a giant machine. This was not the desperate last stand of a dying world. This was the careful work of a people who had been planning for war. Captain Seo Ji-hoon commanded a group of human warships called the Gangnam Division. His job was to hunt down the escaping enemy ships and destroy them systematically. His screens showed dozens of Zephyrian vessels trying to flee in all directions. "Admiral Kim," he reported over the radio, "the enemy fleet is running away as fast as they can. Do you want us to chase them down and finish them off?" Kim considered this for a moment, then replied, "No. Let some of them escape." This surprised many of the human officers. Lieutenant Park Minotaur, who was now serving on Kim's flagship, looked confused. "Sir, why let them go? We could destroy their entire fleet right now." Kim smiled grimly. Because I want them to go home and tell everyone what they saw here today. Fear spreads faster than any ship can travel. When word gets out about what happened to the mighty Zephyrian fleet, other worlds will think twice before threatening Earth. Meanwhile, Dr. Yoon Daeun was monitoring all the systems on the human fleet from her science vessel, Busan's Pride. Her job was to make sure all 12,000 ships were working perfectly together. Admiral, she reported excitedly, every ship is functioning exactly as planned. The new fusion engines we built are working even better than we hoped. We can travel faster and fight longer than any alien fleet in the galaxy. The fusion drives were one of humanity's greatest achievements. Using technology learned from captured alien ships, human scientists had built engines that could power massive fleets across incredible distances. But they had also improved on the alien designs, making them more efficient and more powerful. Lieutenant Colonel Park Soo-jin was aboard the assault carrier Incheon Thunder, watching her fighter pilots chase down small enemy ships that were trying to escape. These human pilots flew small, fast ships that could dart around the big alien vessels like angry wasps. Admiral Kim, she called over the radio, 3 enemy cruisers are asking to surrender. What should we do with them? Kim thought about this carefully. Accepting surrender was important, it showed that humans were not monsters who killed everyone they met. But he also needed to make sure these aliens understood that the war was far from over. Accept their surrender, he decided. But make sure they understand something very clearly. This fleet is not going to stop here. We are going to visit every single world that helped plan this invasion of Earth. The surrendering alien ships were taken prisoner, but their crews were treated well. Kim wanted word to spread that humans were tough fighters but fair winners. This would be important in the battles to come. As the last of the fleeing Zephyrian ships disappeared into hyperspace, Kim turned to look at his own fleet. 12,000 ships stretched out in all directions, a sight that filled him with pride and determination. These ships had been built in complete secrecy over many months. Hidden shipyards in the asteroid belt had worked day and night, using robots and automated systems to construct the largest fleet ever assembled by a single world. The aliens had thought humans were just mining rocks in space, but they had actually been building an armada. All ships, prepare for hyperspace jump, Kim ordered. Set course for the Zephyrian home system. His officers looked at him with surprise. They had just won a great victory at Earth, but Kim was already planning to take the fight to the enemy's own worlds. Sir, asked his navigation officer, are we really going to attack their home planets? Kim nodded firmly. They came to our home intending to destroy everything we love. Now they're going to learn what happens when you threaten humanity. We're not just defending Earth anymore, we're going to end this empire once and for all. The human fleet began moving toward the hyperspace jump points, ready to bring war to an enemy that had thought Earth would be an easy conquest. The galaxy was about to learn that humans were far more dangerous than anyone had imagined. 1 full year had passed since the great battle at Earth. Now, in what used to be the magnificent capital city of the Zephyrian Empire, a very different scene was taking place. The golden towers and crystal palaces that had once shown the power of the alien empire were now occupied by human soldiers and administrators. In the great throne room where Zephyrian emperors had once ruled over dozens of worlds, High Admiral Vextar knelt on the cold marble floor. Heavy chains bound his hands and feet, and his once proud uniform was torn and dirty. Around him stood representatives from many different alien species, all watching nervously as history was made. Admiral Kim Jae-ho walked slowly across the room and stopped in front of the fallen alien leader. He looked down at Vextar with neither anger nor pity, just the calm expression of someone who had finished a difficult job. Your empire is finished, Kim said simply. 12 of your most important worlds have surrendered to Earth. Your fleets are destroyed, and your armies have given up fighting. The Zephyrian Empire is no more. Vextar raised his head slightly, his silver eyes still burning with hatred. You may have won this war, human, but you cannot rule the galaxy. There are too many worlds, too many species who will never bow to primitives like you. Kim almost smiled at this. You still don't understand, do you? Earth doesn't want to rule the galaxy the way your empire did. We have something much better in mind. President Lee So-young stepped forward from where she had been standing with the other human officials. She looked very different from the frightened woman who had pretended to surrender a year ago. Now she carried herself like someone who commanded the respect of entire star systems. Unlike the Zephyrian Empire, she said, addressing all the alien representatives in the room, Earth believes in giving people choices. Those species who want to live in peace and trade fairly with us will find humans to be generous friends and allies. But those who threaten human interests will learn exactly why our species almost destroyed our own planet while we were learning how to fight wars. Her words sent a shiver through many of the aliens present. They had all heard the stories of human history, how this single species had fought thousands of wars against itself, creating weapons powerful enough to turn their entire world into a lifeless rock, yet somehow managing to survive and grow stronger. Ambassador Jung Haijin, who had been chosen to handle Earth's relations with alien governments, stepped up to a podium holding a thick document. She was a small woman with a gentle voice, but everyone in the room listened carefully to every word she spoke. The Terran Accords are very simple, she announced. Any species that signs this treaty agrees to 3 basic rules. First, respect human sovereignty. Earth and its colonies are not to be threatened or attacked. Second, engage in fair trade. We will buy and sell goods at honest prices with anyone who wants to do business. Third, live in peace. Settle your disputes with words, not weapons. She paused and looked around the room at all the alien faces watching her. Follow these 3 rules, and humans will be your friends and protectors. Break these rules, and you will face the consequences. Captain Seo Ji-hoon, who had been promoted to Fleet Admiral after his excellent service during the war, stood near a large window overlooking the alien city. Outside, human ships patrolled the skies while construction crews worked to build new defensive stations. Some of you might be wondering if Earth really has the power to enforce these rules, he said to the alien observers. Let me be very clear about something. The 12,000 ships you saw destroy the Zephyrian fleet was just the beginning. Our shipyards have never stopped building. Every month, hundreds of new vessels joined the Terran Defense Force. This was not an idle boast. Earth's hidden shipyards, scattered throughout not just the human solar system but now dozens of other systems, worked around the clock building new ships. The aliens had learned that humans were very good at keeping secrets and even better at preparing for the next war. Dr. Yoon Dae-eun was now working in a large laboratory with scientists from many different species, including some who had once been enemies. She looked up from her research as she spoke to the gathering. Here in the new Galactic Research Institute, we are proving something important, she said. We have learned that strength through cooperation and unity is much more powerful than strength through conquest and fear. When different species work together, sharing knowledge and helping each other, everyone becomes stronger. The ceremony that followed was unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. One by one, representatives from dozens of species came forward to sign the Terran Peace Treaty. Some signed eagerly, happy to have human protection and friendship. Others signed reluctantly, knowing they had no choice but to accept the new reality. As the last signature was placed on the treaty, the alien delegates began to leave. Many of them kept glancing nervously at the human warships visible through the windows, still not quite believing that a single world had managed to defeat the greatest empire in the galaxy. Admiral Kim watched them go, then turned to President Lee. It's hard to believe how much has changed, he said quietly. A year ago, we were pretending to surrender to avoid being destroyed. Now we're writing the rules for half the galaxy. Lee nodded thoughtfully. We told them we wouldn't give up, she replied. But I don't think we ever mentioned that humans have been preparing for this kind of war since the first time we looked up at the stars and wondered if anyone else was out there. Kim smiled at this. It was true, throughout human history, people had always known that someday they might have to defend their world against threats from space. Science fiction stories, military planning, technological research, all of it had been building toward this moment without anyone really knowing it. The best part, Kim continued, is that we didn't have to conquer anyone to become the strongest power in the galaxy. We just had to prove that attacking Earth was a very bad idea. Earth had indeed become the galaxy's newest superpower, but not through the brutal conquest that had built other empires. Instead, they had shown that sometimes the best way to achieve peace was to be so prepared for war that no one wanted to fight you. The age of human expansion into the galaxy had begun, and it would be built on a simple principle: anyone could be Earth's friend, but no one wanted to be Earth's enemy.